start.
You got the ball.
I would like to know how you got into your into playing.
And playing music?
Yeah.
Well, that goes back into, I'm going to say the early 50s, which was just a few years ago, right? A gentleman from West Virginia moved up to Michigan, and he lived a street, just the other street next to where the street I lived down. There was another street, and he lived behind my house. His name was Marv Maynard, and we kind of got together by just walking across the property, my back of my yard, and saw him over there and got in a conversation. He says, you know, I'm a guitar player. I said, oh, that's cool, man. I always wanted to learn how to play guitar because my dad and all my uncles on my dad's side was in the music, playing music. They all played music. And they played that kind of polka music and vaudeville type thing. My dad played banjo. And so I kind of was in my blood, you know. So, but I didn't know how to play guitar, so he showed me how to play the E chord. And within, I would say, a month, he had me playing rhythm, you know. So after maybe 4 or 5 months, I hooked up with Jimmy Williams and Drifters, and I was playing rhythm guitar, just what they called back then in the old days, they called slap rhythm, you know. Country music, right? So I started playing. I got a job playing with them, and that's basically how my career started. I learned from a guy named Marv Maynard, who later on in years played bass for me on my records and on shows. He still lives in Michigan. He's quit playing, but I saw him not too long ago, and he's still hanging in there, like all us guys are. We're getting old. But it started from, I was born into the music because of my dad's side of the family was all musicians, so I kind of had that when I was a young kid, listening to play music. And then Marvin Maynard taught me how to play guitar, which I play very little guitar. I don't play lead guitar, I just play simple rhythm. You get past 4 or 5 chords, I'm lost. But you know, that's what rockabilly, rock and roll, well, rock and roll back then, now they call it rockabilly, but that rock and roll is, you know, when we started out, we only needed like 3 chords, and and your songs had to start off with well. If you didn't have a well in the beginning of your song, you couldn't get a record deal. You got to be living, well, bebop-a-lula, or well, I was there when it happened. You know, it's all that stuff is well. Well, it's a one for the money. You remember that word? Well is always in front of the songs. So anyway, yeah, that's right. Listen, if you think back at all the old rocker songs, they always start out with, well, I was bebopping or whatever you want to call it, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
What was your main influences in the beginning?
Well, in country music, there was quite a few. Webb Pierce, I liked a lot of his stuff. I liked kind of a variety of things. There's in the country music scene when I was playing that. What's her name? Who had I Fall to Pieces? What's her name? You know, I'm getting bad at names sometimes. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, there's a lot of artists that I liked that influenced me. I just love music. But when I got into the rock and roll scene, obviously there was Carl Perkins, Blue Suede Shoes and Honey Don't, and Elvis Presley doing. He had Milk Cow Boogie Blues, That's Right Mama, those kind of old things. I got I mean, it was a new thing coming on the scene. So as a young guy and a musician, you know, naturally I'm going to grab onto some of that, you know, because I liked it. So the influence thing just became, you know, just I liked what was happening to the music scene when it came to rock and roll, you know, the Sun Record thing. So that's, to narrow it down to just a variety of things. I liked the country music thing, but when the rock and roll thing came in, I kind of grabbed on that. I says, wow, this is kind of neat, you know. But I never lost my country root. I liked country music. I still like country music. I like more of the older country music than I do the newer stuff. There's very few new things I like. Because I like to hear stylists. I like stylists. People that have that really unique, different sound, and the music that comes with that sound or that voice. Today, I hate to say it, but today's music, even in a country field, pretty much everybody has pretty much the same sound in their music and their voice. It's just like there's nothing super unique. Like Randy Travis, he had his own little sound, right? Today in pop music, Rod Stewart he was different. He had a little sound. Johnny Cash had a sound. Elvis had a sound. So I kind of like that kind of thing. Unfortunately, I didn't have that unique sound in my voice, but I have to be honest with myself. I like the older music because they had that sound, and it was different. Everybody had their own little sound, and so it gave your ears, when you're listening to music, different. You don't get bored with the same sound. And if you hear the same sound all the time, your listening is gonna turn off, because you're hearing the same tones, And I kind of think that's what's happening in the music business today. I've been in the music business behind the scenes as well as being an artist. But I am an honest person, and I'll tell it like it is, And Sam Phillips told me today, back then when I was visiting Sam and we would talk about the music business, he would say, back when you're going to find, Jhonny, that they're going to be manufactured artists. And I didn't quite understand what he meant by manufactured artists. Okay, and I asked him, he wouldn't tell me. He says, just you'll find out. And he was so right. Today, in the music business today, it's manufactured artists. And what he meant by manufactured is you can find anybody who has kind of a voice and groom them and market them uniquely, get enough publicity on them, they're going to sell when it comes out. That's the nature of the business. People buy something they see consistently and they hype the thing. But the music business lost uniqueness, stylist, and got into manufacturing artists. And I have to say it with all sincerity that Sam Phillips was totally right, and he foresaw this. He's an amazing man. Some people call him a genius. I don't know if he's a genius or not, but he made some great music back in the 50s and knew when to get out of the business when he made his mark. But he was so right when he said manufactured artists. I'm not going to mention a show that's on television today, but that show is, to me, manufactured artists, because when they get done with the publicity, the young generation is going to buy either the look, the publicity, but they're not buying really the music. And I'm sorry to say, I think a lot of the music, I like all kinds of music. Rap, there's very little of that. Hip hop, they just lost songs. There's no songs today, hardly. I mean, it's there's some out there, but they're just, I don't want to say it, but sound like karaoke singers. But I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for saying that. But I just like to tell it like it is. I mean, nothing wrong with karaoke singers, and nothing wrong with everybody trying to make a mark and make money in the business. But and if you're gonna talk about songs and uniqueness and artists and stars, I'm sorry, we don't have the stars we used to have. They're stars because they made a lot of money, but it's and some of these guys I know very well. I'm not going to mention names again, but I know a lot of big hip hop and rap artists who made a lot of money, and they're super, super big. I give them credit for doing it. They made a lot of money on it. But I can't call them unique singers. I can't call them that. I can't call them, they did some great thing for history and songs, because it's not. It's not. But hey, God bless them. They made a lot of money on it. And some of my friends, they probably, when I go see them, they can say, "What are you saying, Jhonny?" But, I have to tell it like it is. And I learned that from Sam Phillips. Don't fudge over something that you believe in. And that's just my belief. And whether it's right or wrong, I like songs. I love music. I love all kinds of music. but I think because of the industry today that we have, what made the music scene back in the older days was the small independent record companies who founded the street guy who was out there making a mark on the street and brought him and made a star out of him because he was different. And then the major labels took it from there on. Today we lost, the major labels have problems today. I mean, there's no more independent labels to give a lot of these artists, unique artists, a shot. So you have the media doing the things that make superstars, and to me that's, that's not uniqueness. We need more, unique stars out there in the music scene.
When do you music business?
When it started going away?
When you start, from your perspective,
From my perspective, I'm going to guess because I can't remember the years, but when we started losing it, I think in the 80s, latter part of the 70s and 80s. Even in the 70s, we had the rock and roll. A lot of people didn't like the 70s. A lot of people criticized the 70s, but they had some good stuff in there. We started losing. I have to say it, and again, I'm not against my friends who are doing it. Rap music is not music to me. It's spoken word with a beat. It's a story, whatever you want to call it, but it's, how do you call rap music? You can't whistle it. You can't hum it. So I think there should have been. It's a good category that happened in the industry because it was another era of something to deal with music underneath a rap thing and making a statement, which is all right. Hip hop has a little more melody to it. But to call that music, I have a problem with that.
So you totally see a difference between rap and
I think it should be called something else. It's not a song. How do you call, I'm going to tell you a story about something I complain about or I want to do or what I hate about. Even rock and roll had some of that. You sang what your lyric content was, rebelling against something. Rock and roll was rebelling against stuff. It was and rebelling in your lyric. Okay, same thing with rap. It's a rebelling thing, which is all right. It's a young generation giving their opinion and whatever. But it kind of got a little bit out of hand when it got to be real nasty. That turned me off. I mean, to me, I don't even want to know a category of that. I'm sorry. You can't put that into the music business and say this is a song when you're talking about nasty lyrics. And I'm saying it kind of mildly because I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. But, I mean, on the other kind, it's a little bit on the cleaner side, and making a statement is a good thing for the young generation to do their thing. But it's not music. It's something else. It's a part of the record company business, but it should not be called music because it's not. Hip hop, it could be. Disco was music, But here I am talking on this camera and saying things that really bothers me about the industry and where it went. And I used to own 2 major independent labels I've had in my career, and I've had a distributorship in my career, and I kept a lot of my label mates around in the music business didn't know what I did. They knew something, but they didn't know that I had labels that I was involved with. I kept myself out of the front. But I know how the business works. I know how they distribute records. I know how to produce records. I had people work for me, but I was always behind the scenes. Did a little bit myself, and owned a couple of studios. So, and I even owned a pressing plant back then. I pressed vinyl albums and 45s. But a lot of people still didn't know. Only very few of my close friends knew that. But that's why I can say what I say. And now that I'm old enough, I'm up there in the age, I don't care. I'll say it because I wouldn't probably say it back then because it would hurt me probably in the record business. But today I can say what I want to say. And what I'm saying is I think rap music was a money maker for our labels, but I think the labels went totally 100%, not 100%, but too far and didn't create new great talent. There's so much talent in the world today. In fact, there's more now to choose from, and there is some great, unique talent out there. But the music business is a street business. It lost the street, and when it got into the hands of attorneys and people in offices that doesn't have got a clue what's happening out there in the street, is where they made a big mistake. And but my career has been as a singer back in early days, and then I got in behind the scenes after I left Motown. I was with Motown. It was a great educational place. It didn't work for me as an artist, but it was a great educational place for me as a businessman in the music industry. So my career is kind of mixed up between as an artist and an industry guy, and I have a publishing company, and so I'm happy and probably very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From your experiences, like, were some of the other other artists that you remember working with that you really enjoyed, or some other artists back in the 50s?
Been a lot of them. What comes to mind, which really I enjoyed, is Carl Perkins. I really enjoyed the gentleman. He was such a sincere guy, a humble guy. And I thought we lost a good man too early. We've done some shows together, and we've done some talking together. We would talk about, why is this happening now? Why are we still doing the 50s stuff? We should be fishing. This doesn't make sense. The young generation should get into something different. But then we understood why they're into probably the rockabilly scene, the older music, is because just what I made a statement on. I know you asked me a question. I kind of went off into another direction, but it's a sore thing in me about why the young generation. I always believe the young generation should have their own music. It's a great thing that we're out there performing and selling records still to the young generation, and it's a great thing to know that the young generation is enjoying something we did before they was even here on the earth. And he and I talked about it, and we had some great conversations. And I said, I don't know, but I'm going for the ride. It's just fun, I mean, it's nice to know that these young generations is enjoying our stuff that's years ago. And anyway, we lost a good guy, and he was, I would say, probably I had a lot of favorites. I can't say he's my only favorite, but for a very short time we got kind of, I kind of really enjoyed this guy, I only wish I would have had more time with him in the earlier days, which we didn't. Us artists never crossed paths sometimes, we would bump into each other, or you wouldn't see each other for a while because you're going here and they're going there, so you never get to see them. Same thing with Elvis, the same thing with Johnny Cash, and all the artists that I was been around, and there's a lot of artists I wish I would have met that I didn't meet. But influences and my best artists, that's a hard question to ask. I mean, to answer, not to ask, but it's a hard question to answer. Who was my favorite artist? Some of my favorites.
Not just like a favorite, but like
it's
people you just enjoy hanging out with.
I enjoyed the.
Or being a part of.
Part of some.
Part of some way.
Well, I'm glad I was a part of Sun Records.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is. It was an artist's dream back in the old days. If you got signed to Sun Records, you didn't even have to have a record. You got signed. That was the greatest thing that ever happened, because that was something that was that started rock and roll in history. Really, I mean, rock and roll was starting to gel with Bill Haley and the Comets. I always felt that Bill Haley didn't get his dues because he had rock and roll before even Sun Records, really. And there was, other artists, but it was something that the era that happened that I'm really proud to be a part of, even if it's a small part. It was something that I could say, wow, I was there when it happened, which is a title song of my new album I cut. Yeah, I was there when it happened. I saw the birth of rock and roll. I played my part in the birth of rock and roll as a teenager, and so. And that song, Carl was supposed to do that with me because we talked about where did rockabilly come from, and I said I have no idea. I still today I don't have the answer to that question he asked me, and nobody has ever given me an honest answer that I can say, yeah, okay, that was the answer. Everybody says, well, it's from country music. Yeah, well, country music. And I'm talking about something I really love. I love country music. But back then, country music didn't like us guys doing this rock and roll thing. That was we were like the bad boys of the bunch, you know. But rockabilly, I don't have no idea where that came from, and Carl and I talked about that. So that was the coming of me writing a song, because I said, I ought to write about it. And he says, yeah, write it, Johnny, maybe we'll do it together. And I said, yeah, that's a deal. But that never happened because he passed away on us, so when I finished it. But there's a lot of artists that influenced me. I like the older days because there's so much of stuff that was influencing you. As an entertainer, you say, wow, that guy's got something different. That's cool, man. I liked it, you know. So, you know, I like most of the 50s stuff and even some of the early 60s and some of the early 70s, because it was stuff that was really unique, you know, whether it be heavy metal or it would be top 40 type thing. There's just a lot of stuff that was happening back then is not happening today, you know.
What are some of your highlights of your career that you really enjoyed?
Boy. You know, to be honest with you, there's so many highlights that surprised me that became highlights. And my microphone coming off?
Yeah.
That's because I moved around, you know.
That's fine. So, go ahead. So highlights.
Well, the highlights of my career is I found out things I didn't know about. See, I quit singing back in this, when I left Motown in 65, because I said, I had enough of this artist thing. It's not working. I just felt, well, I'm going to get behind the scenes because I learned a lot of things from Motown. So I decided to start my own company and start producing, and so it grew. And I was pretty successful at it, that I felt. But what surprised me was the young generation out of Europe who started. I had a song called Long Blonde Hair on a local label out of Detroit that was Fox Records, and the record company they didn't have enough money to do anything with. They tried, but it just didn't happen. But that song flopped. Now it's a classic around the world, which that surprised me, to be a worldwide classic song that never hit the Billboard charts. And I was told by a fan musician, which I didn't realize, that I had the only, I'm quoting him, I had the only rock roll record, Long Blonde Hair, in a key of E minor, which they never had that in any rock and roll records, any minor key. Yeah. And I thought I played it in E. No, it was. And he says, no, you're wrong. It was E minor. I kind of argued with him, but I said, no, you're right. That's how much I knew. That surprised me. That surprised me that even today, it's every young rockabilly, what we call rockabilly bands now, around the world. And I'm talking about Russia. I'm finding things out in Poland. I'm finding things out in Croatia. I mean. And probably some other places I haven't even found out that there's fans, and they know that song. I mean, I'm saying, wow, you know, that song never hit the Billboard charts. It was a flop. It was a B-side of a record. It was not the A-side. Rock was the A-side on that record label, Fox. Another surprise. I got called to go to England in the early 80s, and I says, no. I just kept telling them no for about 3-4 years. I'm not doing that. I don't sing. I haven't sang in 20 years. I'm not going to start up again. I didn't even have a guitar. So and they says, well, come on. And finally got talked. I said, okay, I will do one show, and that's it, period, the end. I bought me a cheap guitar. I had to relearn all my lyrics on the songs that I've done in the days. And When I got to Birmingham, England, there was such a huge crowd. It was unbelievable. And they started pulling me, had guards on me. I says, this is crazy. I thought I was going to play a little pub, you know. And so I'm nervous, and I know my voice wasn't good. When I got out there in that crowd, and what surprised me it was just a young 18 to 35, 40 years old at the most, you know, maybe a handful of some older guys like me who lived that era or was in that era age. That surprised me. It was so huge. And then I had to do a lot of shows in Europe, and they had guards on me constantly when I did them shows, and that surprised me. Wow, and I had so many surprises. And I told the guy I was going to do that was the only show I was going to do. And then when I got backstage, he asked me how I felt about the show, and I said, "When's the next show?" and I just lied about myself because I said I wasn't going to do it again. Got the bug. I've been doing it ever since. As long as I can make people happy, and I'm happy doing it because I love to play. You know, it's a nice thing. You know, so I mean. I can't pinpoint one little item because there's so many of them. That the song, when it went into a movie, called Reformed Schoolgirl on Showtime. That surprised me. I said, wow, I mean, you know, so there's so many surprises in my career for a guy that didn't have #1 records in the Billboard charts. And the news media has reported me as being the only singer in history that recorded for both Sun Records and Motown Records, the two historic labels in history. I'm one of the first white artists to sign with Motown. That's another thing. Didn't realize that. One of the last, but I probably is the last guy to record in the old recording studio at Sun Records before they went to the new studio, you know. The one on Union Street, and then the new one on Madison. That's when Sam opened up that one. So, I mean, there's so many. I'm saying, you know, pinch me, man. There's something wrong here. I mean, so I have to say I'm a pretty lucky guy, you know, and I'm happy. And I'm happy I still have fans that like the music and see me perform. So there's nothing better than that, I guess, huh? Yeah. And I'm still here today at my age. I'm going to be 69 in May. And lost a lot of my friends in the business and personal friends a lot of them are younger than me, so I'm a lucky guy there too. So I'm doing pretty good so far, right? Yeah.
How do you think it's going to last, and do you think generations are going to keep this music?
You know, that's a good question, and I don't know if I got the answer to that because I didn't think I was going to be doing this now or back in the. I started doing this thing since 1980, I think 83 or 82 when they talked me into doing it. But it was going on. I found out it was going out on. It was really strong in the 70s in Europe, and which I didn't know. I kept getting fan mail, but I just kind of brushed it off. I said, well, somebody found an old record, but now I know what was happening, but I didn't at the time. That's a good question because it's in the States in the last. See, it was big in Europe. It started in the States, I guess. Now I may need some help on this. In the States, it probably started in the 90s. I'm not sure, where it really started spreading all over the United States. Little small pockets here and there in California. Here in California, I mean, it surprised me how big it is here. There's a lot, because it's more. Well, a lot of Europeans came here. I guess they helped that out too. They helped make this happen. So, how long it's going to last? I have no idea. I didn't think it was going to last this long.
What are some of the?
You guys could probably answer that question better than me.
What are some of the bands today the new bands that you actually, or new singers, new bands that you know of that you feel are some of the next generations that are going to be in your spot in the next generation? Do you think? I don't know, someone like Big Sandy or.
Big Sandy's a great entertainer.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that guy.
Yeah.
I have respect for him for a lot of reasons. And he is a good entertainer and good singer. He's got a great voice. He does that. Him and his band did something for me that I respected and I'll never forget. I came out here the very first time, and I can't remember the year, but I'm going to say probably in the mid '80s. And I can't remember the guy who brought me out here to do a show in a small pub, and I said, okay. He had a tour set up for me from San Diego, 3 or 4 shows in the LA area, and in San Francisco, did a couple. And I met this band that was supposed to back me up called Big Sandy and the Fly Ride Trio. And I figured, well, it's a little local band, never heard of them. Anyway, we got playing. I says to the promoter, I says, I hope you're paying these guys. They're pretty good, And nobody pretty much knew of them. They were just starting out. And he says, no, they want to do it for free. I says, free? I says, they're playing, we got this thing of San Diego, LA, 3 or 4 shows, the Palomino Club, and then we're going to San Francisco. We're playing 2 or 3 gigs over there. I said, these guys play for free? I said, anybody paying for gas? No, they do. I said, no, that's not right. I said, well, no, we gotta pay these guys. He said, they won't take it. So I said, I'll get that money to those guys. When I got to San Francisco, I said, now, guys, we're going to have breakfast together, and I'm buying, and I want to thank you all. We're going to talk about what we've been doing here. And they wouldn't go to breakfast. I said, now, I got to pay you guys. And they would not accept any money, wouldn't accept breakfast from me. I said, this is nuts, You guys are crazy. I mean, you're paying you was in a van, driving in their van, they buying gas. I said, they wouldn't let me buy anything. And they said it was an honor to play with me. I said, well, that's cool, but you guys are paying in your pocket, and I don't like this. This is not cool. They did not accept anything from me, and I'll never forget that as long as I live. That to me, Big Sandy and those guys were just guitar player named TK Smith, great guitar player. I have a lot of respect for Big Sandy because of that, and been watching him. He's been doing some good things, so that's cool. Your question was, again, was it who? Bands, new bands. There's a lot of them. I mean, I met some, that they're. But it always puzzled me. Why are you doing the stuff that we did in the old days? But the scene is so huge around the world. I can see why they're doing it, and they're doing it because they love the music. So that's an honor to me and to anybody who was involved with that music back in those days. And there's a lot of us are out there who played the music, didn't have the fortunes of being a superstar. Just didn't happen. But what makes me feel good is that these guys at an age of retirement, most of them, or before they passed away, had a chance to go and play some nice gigs, and they were some decent sized ones, big ones, in different parts of the world where they didn't have the chance to do that when they were younger because they were trying to make it and it didn't happen, whether for whatever reasons, So I have to thank the world, the young generation in the world who brought the 50s music back as a big cult thing, man. I mean, we sure didn't do that. I mean, you guys did it. So it's you can't. I don't think we can even thank you enough for this. I mean, we're doing something that we probably obviously wouldn't be doing. We would hang the guitar up and say, yeah, back then we tried this, and working in some of these guys were working in factories and their day gig and still get out there and play like a star. And they are really stars in the history of music because they were part of that era, So I think, boy, how do you say thanks for that? I mean, it's, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's unbelievable what's going on in the young generation today. That's the stuff that Carl Perkins and I talked about. Wow. and in a very short time that we were working together. It's just, it was, wow. Yeah.
You recently went to Japan. What was your reaction when you saw like Japanese people that don't even know the language or whatever they're saying?
I have a video of that show that they sent me, and I didn't realize it at the time. One thing that really shocked me when it was kind of funny, but at the same time, it said to me that wow, they appreciated something. They appreciated me being there, and which that was another surprise. When I was walking on, they said I'm coming on, so I start walking on stage, pick up my guitar, and this gentleman who was bringing me says, "He's real." Wow, I'm real, I guess. That was a surprise. That was fun to see that, but the crowd, the musicians were just unbelievable. I mean, they played the stuff like they were the guys who recorded the stuff. Great musicians. It was a great show. The crowd, they were throwing themselves, what do they call it? They throw them out in the audience. They catch each other, they slam themselves on the audience, fall on, it just was, I said, man, hell, I'm not Elvis Presley. I mean, give me a break, But they enjoyed it. I mean, that made me feel good. It was the Japanese people are just, and they treated me. How can I say thanks? I mean, they treated me so well. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I don't have any words for it. It just was great. Yeah. And the gifts they gave me, the gifts they gave me was just, it was unbelievable. I think the scene, hopefully the scene will continue because the only thing I can say about rock and roll, rockabilly music, which is part of the foundation of rock and roll, where rock and roll grew from, it's a fun music. It's not sterile. It's not mechanically made from a computer. It's human music. It's the human music played by humans. It was a fun, loose music. It didn't have the precise, even when I was producing records, we produced things, make sure the beat is really staying the same. The rockabilly stuff, the music floated. It swelled and it dropped down. It didn't have this tick tock, same beat, consistent. It was just it was just fun. It was fun music. It's the human feel. It felt good. Sam Phillips said that to me. He says, if it feels good, don't try to mess it up. Try to fix it. If it feels good, leave it alone. It's a feel-good music. So yeah, it's a feel-good music. It feel good. It just moves you. You ever listen to radio today? A lot of radio music. You sit there and listen. You hear some good stuff, but it's always the same sound. By that time, you go, I think I'll listen to some news or something. It's the sound of all the artists. And I'm not downing any artists. I'm just saying the industry has created this problem. Everybody sounds the same tone. The music underneath that artist matches the same tone. When you had Waylon Jennings, you knew when the record started that music, that guitar picking, had that bottom sound to Waylon's, because that was Waylon's sound. Johnny Cash had his, every time he don 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 don, that had to be Johnny Cash's new record, man. Because today it's just everybody's got the same sounding music, the same electronics, same tones, and I call that monotone. It's just your ears say, I had enough of this sound. I want to hear something, another tone, And that's where the music business, I'm sorry, that's where they lost. The producers, people producing these songs and marketing these songs, man, they ain't marketing songs, they're marketing monotone, radio, duh. That's why we got, which is a good thing, Happy, you got satellite radio, right? Yeah. I hope they continue what they're doing and keep it good, because commercial radio today is programmed by one dude, I'll say it, Clear Channel. I mean, they messed up a lot of things too because they're controlled by big business, and the artist can't play that gig because his record's not on Clear Channel's list of programming. And now they have advertising. Instead of payola, now it's if we advertise the record, you pay $100,000 to get it played on X amount of stations, we'll play the record. But to me, that's still payola to me.
Yeah.
That's the way the business is run. It's no more record business. It's a sad thing. And I think young generation has really got shortchanged, and I think that's why they're into the older blues, the rockabilly, early rock and roll. Instead, they have nothing to grab on and say that's theirs, other than rap and hip hop. Yeah. So, again, rap and hip hop's cool, but it shouldn't be the only music out there, right? Yeah. So that's what the record business went wrong. They got on a bandwagon of fast dollars and fast money and forgot about the other bunch of music. And they're putting out the other bunch, but they're not paying attention to what they're doing. You know, when it manufactures a bunch of artists, a whole bunch of artists have the same tones, but just different songs. You know, you got to give. You know, it's got to be, you know, this, you know. And radio's got to have to stop dictating to the record industry. Your song doesn't fit our sound. Since when is radio their sound? The entertainer who's making the records, that's their sound. And the record companies who are manufacturing these records, they create the sound. The radio station plays it for their advertisers and stuff, but it has happened in the radio business that they're dictating to the record companies that you got to make, our radio station has a certain sound and you got to manufacture the records for our sound. So they're a radio station and they're telling the record companies how to produce their records and find a talent for their radio stations. Bad news. Again, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack. If this ever gets into a major situation, I'm going to hear about it. I don't care. That's the way it is. And if you don't see it, you hear it, there's something wrong with your ears, you know, and your eyes, you know, because that's what's wrong with our business. You know. And I have to say one more thing, and then I want to call it quits. They just did a documentary on me and the story of my life and things I've quoted. I haven't said anything on that documentary as much as I said on this one. Maybe I should, but they probably wouldn't let me do it anyway because it wouldn't get aired. But I've talked a lot about the bad things that the industry is doing. I have to say the bad thing that the fans are doing. Okay, we have a lot of bootleggers out there, bootlegging the artist's product, especially these old guys. Us old guys. And I think that's wrong because they press up 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 records, and they're making a little bit of money. To pay the artist just a small piece of the profit they make, to pay the artists, the music publishers, the writers, they've hurt the business by doing that, big time. And I have to say, because now of the computer age and stuff, and my own grandsons did it, or probably still doing it. I told them not to do it, but everybody's stealing stuff off the internet. I mean, and downloading. They don't realize. Sure, they get it for free because they ain't got the money to buy it for that day they've got the record on one day, right? But if they really look into what they're doing, they're killing the business. Yeah. And when there is no more putting records out, no more music, what's going to happen? I don't know where if that will ever happen, but it's going that way because you can't manufacture records. And people stealing them, instead of going out to the store and spend the $15 to $20 and buy that record. They're stealing them, and I have to say that's bad news because what you're doing, maybe not in your generation, but your kids may not have that luxury to buy records because it's the way the music business is going now. It's terrible. I mean. You got a few out there making the platinum, triple platinum records, but it's not going to last if they continue doing what they're doing today, getting music free and stuff like that. You can't afford as a business person to do it. The record companies are at fault just as much because the way they're doing their things, their business, but the public is not helping. In fact, they're doing a lot of damage, by doing it. So it's a kind of 50, maybe not 50-50, but it's bad news. It's just how can artists survive? And the artists always gets the short end of the stick, and the songwriters, when people steal their songs and don't pay them, they have to make a living too, and that's what they chose to do. And if they say, I'm not doing this anymore because people are stealing my songs, I don't get paid, I can't afford, I got to work in a factory, or I got to go get me a gig someplace. So he's going to stop writing.
Yeah.
So he may be a super writer. He may have that song that the world would want to hear. But the young generation today are not watching what we're doing. And my family's just as guilty. I catch them doing. I say, "What are you doing? Papa John's in the record business. You're doing a no-no. You know, don't do that. You know." But that has to stop. It really has to stop. I mean, that was what's good about the '50s music. You go to a record shop and buy that album. Say, I didn't like the whole album, but I like 2 songs on that album, man. But you bought the thing, and the artist. It was a good thing. It was a fun thing, you know. It was a challenge. I have to go get me a couple more jobs, man. I got to buy that record, you know. Today you don't have to do to get the job. You just go on the internet and steal it.
Yeah. What about
for free?
What about those people?
How many households steal? I see my records, and they pop up and say, "Well, that guy didn't get a license to get." He may sell 5,000 for. I have no idea, but Long Blonde Hair has been bootlegged so much. I mean, people are recording his songs, and I don't get any. I'm happy that they're doing it, but it's just they're doing a wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing a wrong thing. Yeah, so. At least you're living in an era that there's still some music out there.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm afraid that's. I'm surprised that Sam Phillips saw that coming earlier, and that happened to me when I was talking about that. It was in the late '60s, 71, 77, when he mentioned it to me. He says, "Johnny, you're going to find," in a conversation, we're just talking about music and his career and different things about what's happening, and he said that you're going to find there's going to be because I think I asked him, why don't you continue stay in the record business? He says, no, I know when to quit. And he says, you're going to find out there's going to be manufactured artists. And that's when I asked him, what does that mean? I mean, I don't know what you mean by manufactured artists, you know. He said, you'll find out. Well, I'm finding it out now.
It's funny because even way back then he was able to see it like ahead of time.
He foreseeing things. I say, a guy like him is probably a genius. I mean, I didn't think there's going to be manufactured artists. I had no clue what's going on, you know. But he was so right. Yeah.
And once you get into the music business, because he was actually really into the music business.
Yeah.
He started seeing it within.
Probably when he was starting to see a little bit of it. But he was.
Record.
Yeah. Well, he was. I guess I don't know what made him get out of it earlier. Maybe it was a financial thing. I don't know. But he said, I knew when to quit. He made his mark. He made history. I guess when you make history, you say if you continue, you might lose your history thing too sometimes.
Yeah.
If you get successful, like, say I made the money I want to make, and if you continue, you might lose all that money too. If you might gamble away and go broke at the end of the tunnel, you know. So there probably was a lot of things he looked at to make him stop the record business. But, you know, thank you.
So your story. I never knew you were in the music business till now.
A lot of people didn't. I let some people know about it, but I've been in behind the scenes. I've done things, record promotion. Some of the big artists I was involved with promoting because the guy who was in charge of promoting couldn't bring the guy in. He asked me to help him out, and I've done it. I never mentioned the artist. I won't mention the artist, but I've done a lot of that too. I've done a lot of things when I was younger. I was just fire guy. Don't tell me I can't do something because I'll prove you wrong 9 times out of 10. If you dare me, 9 times out of 10 you'll lose. And even if I've never done it before, I'll figure it out and I'll probably come in. I've been that way all my life. Even on building something, say that guy's laying brick over there. You couldn't do that. So yeah, you want to bet? And if you betted me, because the guy did, and I laid some brick, and he says. At my own house, I had a room built on, and I said, I'm going to lay my own brick. I want to prove this guy wrong. And I did it, and it just looked just as good as the guy that laid the brick.
Wow. So
you don't bet me, because you might lose. I mean, maybe not always, but 9 times out of 10 you'll lose, because if I want to do that bet, I'll prove you wrong.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Stay positive. Don't let anybody tell you can't do something. There's no such thing as can't.
Yeah.
No such thing as can't. That's a bad word. Try, but say you can't. No.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.